I'm from the bottom of the block where we really gang, where we don't never speak a word, we just let it bang. That's life up in the bottom where we could never hang. It's that before dishonor, swear to God I'll never rank. And boy, I'll never break, I'm built for this just like a tank. You diss me once, homie, you won't get another chance. And I won't even speak a word, I'll just let it blast. I put that on the bottle, homie, that I'm down to smash. And you come and test the water, see if it don't crack. And real G's never switch up, never take the stand. A real G keeps it solid, never rolls with rats. I'm true to the code, homie, never looking back. And ain't no dirt up in my name, homie, those are facts. I keep it G, homie, I don't never have to act. Ain't nothing like these suckers on the net that spitting cats. Boosting up their name for the fame is considered crack. You already knew on where I stand. With the homies posted in the viral daily packing strats. Boy, la vida loca, it be crazy in my habitat. That before dishonor is my code and ain't no turning back. That before dishonor is my code and ain't no turning back. Fernando Valley. This right here is Valley Glen. Valley Glen having to be the most smallest area in the San Fernando Valley, probably. You know, it's a city right between North Hollywood and Van Nuys. Some people even consider it part of North Hollywood. Some consider it part of Van Nuys, but it's its own thing. It's Valley Glen, and Valley Glen is the home to the AK. Which was a tag banging crew. Well, it was a tagging crew at first, started as Artist Kings within the late 90s, early 2000s. And then it transpired into a tag banging crew that stood for Acid Kings, Assassin Kings, Acid Criminals. They have different, meanings that they make it stand for. You know what I mean? All crazy, and a bunch of stuff. And right here, Valley Glen is the place that they call home. Now, normally crews tend to roam around, don't really have a specific location. But, they decided to set up shop right here in Valley Glen. They even have a clique called the Woodman Street Locals, because that's where you can find them on Woodman. Woodman Street Locals is like the main clique, because they're on Woodman. And from Woodman, I would say to Vanoan, to Kittredge, and to Fulton. So everything that's in the middle is what's considered their neighborhood. Roughly more of a smaller, chunk of territory. And it's just so jam-packed full of neighborhoods because you have MS right there, you have Lennox right there. And a bunch of other just different hoods that just stay like just jam-packed within that area. So it makes it very chaotic. But the AK was always a large tag banging crew that stood their ground and became a neighborhood like roughly like around the mid 2000s, like 2010, 12, roughly around there is when they became a neighborhood. And they've been doing their thing ever since. But that's what's up with the AK neighborhood right there. Another neighborhood that you have right here in the city of Sun Valley. Now Sun Valley, most recognized for like the Violent Boys gang, but you do have several neighborhoods like Sol Trece, Diablos, and the Grumpy Winos. Now Grumpy Winos is located already on the distance of Sun Valley, like already heading into like North Hollywoodish area is where you can find them, because the Grumpy Winos neighborhood is you can find them on Roscoe Boulevard and Coldwater Canyon, and all the way to Satacoy, and from Satacoy all the way to where the riverbed thing stretches out through. So everything that's in the middle, what's Strathern, what's Fulton, Armenta, Ethel, and all of those streets is what's considered the Grumpy Winos neighborhood. Now, Grumpy Winos has to be one of the most smallest of the Sun Valley gangs, doing, the fact that they were around since the late 90s, early 2000s. They become a neighborhood into, the mid 2000s as well, like 2010, roughly around there. They were with it though, like, don't get me wrong, you heard about the gdubs neighborhood, the tagging crew, you know what I mean? They used to stand for Guess Who, Going Wild, a bunch of stuff, you know what I mean? But now it just stands for Grumpy Winos, Sun Valley Grumpy Winos. They have several cliques as well, Trigger Happy Locals, youngsters, several cliques. But they've been doing their thing, they have homies busted, they put in work, you know what I'm saying? You hear about these guys, you see them up. Like I said, they were roughly always a small, clique, you know what I mean? But to this day, they still maintain up and still hold it down, you know what I mean? Climbed up the ladder and, became the neighborhood, and they be representing right there. All right, here now we have the city of North Hollywood / Sun Valley is when it already North Hollywood turns into Sun Valley. You have the MTC neighborhood. MTC standing for Mexicans Taking Control, More Than Crazy. They have several meanings that they made it stand for, but those are the two most commonly used. Now I know they're in Palmdale area or Lancaster area 661. There's another one called Midtown Criminals. I was told that they didn't have no relationship with them. I was told that they did. It's like, so it's one of those. So take that with a grain of salt. But I do know that there is another MTC that's a neighborhood out there. But this is the one that started right here in North Hollywood in the early 90s is when they started. Roughly around the Grant High School, North Hollywood High School, and all that. And then they made their way into the Strathern and Lower Canyon dead end right there. You could also find them on Satakoy and Armenta. They have different spots in which you could find them at. But those are the most two commonly ones that they tend to roam around. You know what I mean? But like I said, some of these neighborhoods that were crews before that became neighborhoods don't have like specific territories. Because that's pretty much how crews don't really have like turfs. You know what I mean? But those are like the two common places where they consider that as their turf. You know what I mean? And like I said, More Than Crazy at the time was a large crew. They're not as large as they used to be no more. You roughly don't see them up as much, but they still hold a presence right there and representing for theirs. But that's what's up with the Mexicans Taking Control of the More Than Crazy neighborhood. Here's another neighborhood located right here in the North Hollywood area. Roughly, it used to be large. It was a tag banging crew that stood for NFL. That was the name of the tagging crew. NFL stood for No Fucking Limit. Was how the crew, what it stood for. And it was a pretty large crew, and you would see their activity and hear about them, and they got pretty large. They had kind of died out for a bit. They're not as large as they used to be. But nonetheless, they still hold a presence, and you still see their activity, even in several other cities like Arleta, you know what I mean? And Pacoima and places like that. But originally, they came out of the North Hollywood area by Vanoan and Clybourne, almost by that areas where you were able to find their activity and them and their breeding grounds, their home base. You know what I mean? Now the NFL added the S to it, so it's NFLS, and it stands for Neighborhood Felons. That's pretty much how you see it up now, and the abbreviation that they use, and what it stands for. You know what I mean? And like I said, even though you don't see their activity as much as some of these other hoods, and they're not as large as they once were. Because when they were tagging crew, they were pretty large. You know what I mean? They were around since the early 90s. Became a neighborhood roughly around the early 2000s, and continue to still represent right there for theirs. You know what I mean? But that's what's up with the NFLS right there neighborhood. Here's another tag banging crew that had been around already for since the early 2000s. Became a neighborhood roughly like around 2016, 17. Right here in the city of Arleta, you have the Nordhoff Street Locals, or also known as the Nonstop Locals. When they were a tag banging crew, that's what it stood for, Nonstop Locals. And then they made it stand for Nordhoff Street Locals due to the fact that they're in Arleta on Nordhoff, through those back streets, through those back alleys by where the KFC's at, Woodman and Nordhoff. By the City Bank and all of that, through those back ends is where you can find the Nordhoff Street Locals. It is said to that they also kick it in the Brantford Park. Could be so. But normally those back alleys is their stomping grounds. They were a decent sized crew, you know what I mean? For a crew, a lot more smaller for a neighborhood. I was told that they're roughly only like about 60 heads, this neighborhood, so roughly a little bit more on the smaller side. But nonetheless, they hold down the city of Arleta. One of the few gangs that's in Arleta, next to Arleta boys, but that, they're not really up no more. So, kind of like the ones that, pretty much took the place right there, through those back ends, like I said, of Arleta is where you can find the Nordhoff Street Locals and, representing for theirs. Here's a neighborhood right here, in the city of Pacoima. Well, it's in different parts of the valley. It's a neighborhood that tends to float around, and I think people will recognize this neighborhood more because it's located in different spots. You know what I mean? They kind of just like drift everywhere, which is the MCP neighborhood. MCP used to be a tag banging crew that came out of the San Fernando Valley, the 818. As I was told, this is where they originated from. This is where, where they started, in the city of Pacoima. Is where, you were able to find them. They were a large tag banging crew that had been around since the early 90s and didn't become a neighborhood until the early 2000s, if not the late 99s, is when they were, made their ranks up. And it's one neighborhood that you would hear about, you know what I mean? They definitely did their thing. These guys ain't no suckers, you know what I'm saying? They were definitely with the business, and continue to be representing for theirs. In the valley, you definitely don't see the activity by them as much as you used to, every now and then. But I know that they are located in different other spots. They're in the Empire. I see them up in the SGV. I see them up in the south side of Los Angeles. So they do have members that just float around. Like I said, this neighborhood doesn't have a specific location. They kind of just represent wherever they land. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much their get down. Like I said, these guys, do have riders. They are with it, and they were a tag banging crew. You know what I mean? That stood for Mexicans causing panic, and continue to represent for theirs right there, for that MCP neighborhood right there.